Ladies and gentlemen, today is November 18th, 2014, and this is the KNKL Show, episode 201. I'm your host, Kienan Lafferty, and today we're going to be doing a Let's Paint featuring none other than the beautiful ASUNA from Sword Art Online. Yes, that is right, people who guessed the thumbnail on Facebook. Good job. Good job to you. And speaking of Facebook, before we get into our Let's Paint, let's go ahead and, there we go. We got to zoom in because we're going to be taking a look at all of your awesome artwork that has been submitted to the Facebook. And we got to go really fast today. I do apologize, but you guys are submitting so much awesome stuff that I can't fit it in the usual, like 30 seconds that it takes to scroll through all this stuff. So if you'd like to join us, just click that little link or click the link in the description or just type in that URL at the bottom left of the page and you can join us on Facebook and come get cookies. All right. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the tutorial, or rather the Let's Paint. The Let's Paint. All right, and starting us off, we're going to be doing our good old time lapse, and we're going to be doing it per usual, just doing the normal thing. I will just let it go, and I'll pause it every now and then, kind of highlight a couple things, bring your attention to certain parts, and we're just going to have a dandy good old time. All right, so the first thing that I would like to bring your attention to is the fact that the video is not pausing. There we go. All right, so the first thing that I did was I pulled up some reference online, finding some good reference of our character, ASUNA, and I wanted to make sure that I drew her, or I gave her a treatment that was in my style. Basically, kind of mix in a little bit of the Emma comic feel into the Sword Art Online feel. After that, I was feeling pretty confident. And I knew that I wanted to do, basically the rule of thumb when we did splashes at Riot, and I continually do this in all my drawings now, whenever you want to make a character feel very powerful, you'll always draw the camera like looking up at them, right? You are below them. The amazing ASUNA is towering above us in a very powerful pose, holding her rapier, which I think is called lambent light. I think that's what it's called. Holding her rapier over her shoulder in a very domineering feeling. So, so that's why I decided to draw her from this panel. I'm really a big fan of... something really important happened right there. I'm really a big fan of drawing the powerful chicks, the sexy yet powerful women. So, and ASUNA was definitely, she fit that bill. So, needless to say, we're doing some fan art of her. Okay, so the first thing I want you guys to notice right now, what I'm doing in the layers over here, is I got to about this point, and I wasn't fully believing in the perspective going up. The foreshortening and everything with the body coming towards us, it was looking a bit like, okay, like the chest looks like it's kind of going down normally, and then all of a sudden I'm like trying to force the arm to come at you and like the leg to come at you, and it just ended up looking like a giant malformed leg. So what I did was I darkened down, or rather I lightened the opacity on that layer, and then I actually just went in and I redrew the entire body with simple shapes just to make sure that everything is now cascading towards us, basically drawing the body first in perspective, and then on top of that we are going to lay in the armor and all that good stuff. So, yes, and usually this little play bar doesn't show up there. I wonder why that is. If I do this, does it go? Oh! There we go. Oh, but now we got this little bar up here. Oh, well, I like that more. Although it did make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, whatever. It looks cool. It looks like it's part of the UI down there. We'll stick with that. All right, but we are tangenting. Not really much to, describe here. I'm using my sculpt technique, my line sculpting technique. You'll find that there's a bunch of layers over here, but I'm actually not working on multiple layers. I don't draw a simple sketch and then lower the opacity and go over top and start refining it with a new one. Not usually. That one time when I drew the body over top of it to kind of clean up the perspective, I did. But most of you know my technique is just to work all on one layer. I lay down simple, thick lines. I almost think of it as laying down super thick lines and creating shapes. And then from there, I'm going in and I begin refining lines. I begin thinning them out and sort of refining, as you can see here. And I like to term this Kienan Lafferty's technique of line sculpting. And it's basically what I've been saying that all the artists in the world should do this, of course, because it's my technique and therefore it is the best. But seriously, you should give it a shot. Try it out. See if it works for you. Might not work as well for you as it does for me. But what if it did? Give it a shot. So yeah, you'll see me just laying in thick lines. And then I just go in and I clean them up. And another interesting thing that you'll notice that I do is I like to use, I'm actually using one brush for both the brush and the eraser. And I'm basically creating my lines by laying in with the brush and then erasing away with the eraser. That's basically how I'm creating my values. You'll notice that here's the background right back here. And then up here is where my actual lines are. So, and I like how the bar actually cleaned that, or rather made that get covered up. But anyway, yeah, but that's how I create it. And then that allows me, as you're going to see in part 2, oh yeah, I totally forgot to say, today is part 2, or part 1. Part 2 is going to have us working on coloring the lines, laying in masks, and taking the piece to a more finished state. And I wanted to make sure we focus mostly on line art today, just in case any of you ever wanted to see a slower time-lapse version of me creating line work. And you can see my technique and try it out for yourselves. So there was a couple of things that I went into with this. A couple, I don't want to say changes, but a couple of things that I added to ASUNA's armor. And that was that I really liked her chest plate, but I realized that that's literally like the only plate armor that she has on herself, and I felt it would be pretty cool to have like gauntlets and bracers on her, so I'll add those in a little bit later, as you'll see. But yeah, this was actually a lot of fun, and I'm super happy to be doing fan art again. Like I love the fact that I actually have time to do fan art. I've balanced out my schedule with working for Riot, working on the comic, and I actually have time to do personal work. Hey, how about that? A lot of you might be thinking, what? He doesn't have time to do personal work normally? No, not when you're working for a professional company. When you're working in the industry, you ask an artist like, oh, so when do you get a chance to do like fan art or like personal work? And they'll just like give you this blank stare, like, what do you mean? Like do this, like draw and not get paid? Like just for myself? Like it's a completely foreign concept to most artists, sadly. But that's just the way it goes. This is the way it goes. It's tough to work for 8 hours drawing pictures and then come home and say, hey, you know what I really want to do? More of what I just did for 8 hours earlier. So it is good. It's really good. I feel like I've achieved Zen balance with my art life in all ways. So, and here's those bracers and the elbow pads that I was talking about putting on. I just dig chicks in armor. I think that's why, chicks like Riven, heroes like Riven. Who else do I really like from League? Just any chick with plate armor on. Kale's cool, although I don't think she should have the helmet on. I like the skins where she has her helmet off. But it gives you a little bit like that Samus Aran feeling, It's like the sexy chick in the suit of armor, can't see her face. But I digress. Let's get back to the task at hand. And one of my favorite things to do when I'm working on just characters in general is hair. And I want you guys to pay very close attention to how I go about refining this. Specifically with like the braids and all this stuff over here. Just watch how I've laid out the simple shapes immediately with thick lines, and it's given me an immediate read of my silhouette. It's giving me an immediate read of the shape, language, and the flow that's going to happen in the piece, as opposed to trying to lay out perfect lines right at the beginning. And you can watch as I will add and subtract to basically create those shapes. Very interesting, is it not? Very, very interesting. And I really like it. Oh, and the other reason why I like the brush that I'm using is called the chalk brush. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. If you want to check out the brushes that I use, I link all of them. I link my brushes in every single video that I do. You can go download them off DeviantArt for free, and you can upload them into Photoshop. I don't know if it works in other programs, but it might. Photoshop is where they came from, so upload them into Photoshop. Try them out for yourself. I've heard only good things from it. Everybody says it's like drawing with butter. It's like drawing with butter. I don't know if that would really be easy or not, but just kind of like, it's really easy to just maneuver, right? You just kind of like spread it on there and just kind of erase it out. Just kind of make it into whatever you wish. And that's why I like to call it sculpting, because I really do feel like I'm sculpting when I do these things. So yeah, just moving on to some refinement. I noticed that the little strap thing that goes from her arm up to her breastplate is kind of sticking a little far out there. Like if she raised her arm, it would like constrict her. So I was trying to like move it up so it was closer to her, like the pivot point. I was trying to move it up a little bit so it was closer to the pivot point. And I eventually get it there, but takes a little bit of time. Takes a little bit of gotta finesse it a little bit, if you know what I mean. So, but yeah, this has been so much fun to do this. It actually reminded me of doing splash art, strangely, because I usually don't do art like this or like characters from this angle that much anymore. It's usually just comics and concept art now, which is isometric type stuff, like game angle. This is how the character is going to look in the game. Here's a turnaround of the character in different poses. Very simple stuff. Like here, it looks cool, but if you were to hand this off to a 3D modeler, they would have so many questions. Like, okay, what exactly is this design on her neck? What's like on her back? Like, there's so many questions that this does not answer. But the point of this picture is not to answer questions. It is to look cool. So we're okay with that. We are absolutely okay with that. Lately, I've been really enjoying this thing where I'll draw sort of like a mid-tone on the fingertips and then erase a little line through it, and it looks like fingernails. It's like really super easy to do, and because I always struggled with that, like how do you make fingernails like lines? How do you make fingernail lines and not have them look like weird? And I found that this technique works quite well. Quite well. So yeah, I don't pass that around just everywhere. That's a tip. That's a tip. That's inside. That's inside now. So, yeah, but this has been really fun. And speaking of fun, speaking of fan art, I'm super excited to be joining everybody out in Honduras. If you live in Honduras and you're watching this and you understand what I'm saying, then I'm going to come visit you this weekend. And I will have this hopefully finished. I should have this finished and ready as a print, so I'll sign it and all that good stuff. And I'll have some other League fan art stuff that I've done. And I'm super excited to join you guys out there in a place that I can't really pronounce the name of, but it is in Honduras. And I've just been really enjoying cons. Oh, and that's the other thing, is that I'm really enjoying doing fan art because I really want to open up a booth that is focused solely on stuff that I like fan art and all that stuff. And yeah, not just League stuff, because I want to do like the comic, but then I want to have League, and I want to have video games, and I want to have anime, and up till now, I've been trying to like cram it all into one booth, and then it's just kind of like this mishmash of like everything. It's like, oh yeah, hey, I work on League of Legends, but I also have a comic, and then over here is like some other fan art stuff, and it's all in different styles. So somebody like coming up to my booth, or like looking around, they're like, and you do all of this? It sounds kind of hokey, right? Like if I was an artist like looking at a booth like that, I'd be like, this guy doesn't do all this stuff. Artists only work in one style. It's impossible. You can't have all this diverse range of styles and stuff like that. So what I've been wanting to do lately is to separate everything from the comic over here, one table, and then have another table over to the side that'll focus on fan art and all that good stuff. And we will have a great, great time when that happens. This next year. Next year I'm going to be planning on doing stuff like that. And we're going to have a good time. All right, so it looks like we are nearing the end of the time lapse. Hope you guys have enjoyed watching this so far. Hopefully I didn't blab too much. Actually, I think I blabbed just enough. Just enough. And once the time lapse is done, I will take you into Photoshop, kind of do a quick little run through of all the details, talk about a couple things, and then we're going to end today's show. Part 1 and Part 2 should be coming out next week sometime. All right, so that does it for the time lapse. Let's go ahead and jump into here and let's talk about a couple of the details. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is right back at that very beginning, the very beginning spots or stages. Okay, so that would be, yeah, basically the change from this right over here to this. And I want you to pay attention mostly to how much more believable this body is coming towards you than this one is. It's still really mishmashy, it's really messy, and yet understand that I had to go through this to get to this point, and then to get to the very end. And I cannot stress enough how important it is that you lay out your complete composition, like your complete character, in a very rough way in the beginning of the piece. Lay out your composition. figure out, okay, all the hair is going to be flowing this way, and then we'll have the shape of the sword coming out like that. And, you know, the body's like coming at it, it's like this, and make sure you sketch it all in, right? And I like to sketch, you see it has like a mannequin kind of feeling to it. It's very, very simple, and yet it captures that, captures the perspective quite well. And then it just goes into refinement. Refinement stages, moving stuff around, deciding whether I wasn't sure if I was going to put the breastplate on or not. But then I decided on it. I actually couldn't tell exactly in the anime if it was like a breastplate or not. And a lot of the fan art, she doesn't have one on. So, yeah, but I was like, it looks way cooler with the breastplate. We got to have that. And then I was like, well, if she has that piece of armor, we got to be realistic and give her at least one more piece of armor, right? That way she actually looks like she could be in battle, right? And then I added some other details in here, like the double layer to the breastplate there, as well as kind of some things in the shoulder guards there, or elbow guards, rather. I like that she has open shoulders. I know it's completely unrealistic and not very functional, but hey, it's sexy, so it works. Alrighty then, peoples. We are going to end today's show. Thank you for joining me on YouTube as usual. We'll be having part 2 up a little bit later, probably next week or something. So until next time, you guys take care, and I'll see you soon.